All right, welcome back to Law and Crime Live. We are on the line with Vincent Hill, a law enforcement analyst. He is at the courtroom in the trial of Claude Tex McIver. He is on the ground, has some updates for us. Vincent, what's happening over there?
Well, I've been sitting in the courtroom all morning, and it's been pretty empty, a pretty somber courtroom. There's just been a lot of people in there conversing, mostly on the defensive side. Texas assistant, his friends are there. But we're still waiting for a jury to come back with a decision. Originally this morning, the jury had said they were going to work through lunch. That's what the deputy said. But about 20 minutes ago, everyone was kicked out of the courtroom. I know the defense went to lunch maybe about 30 minutes ago, and the prosecution just went to lunch here about 20 minutes ago. So we're not quite there yet on a verdict. You know, I heard speculation that it may come around 3 p.m. Eastern time. So we're just waiting to hear back on that.
Yeah, I mean, a Friday afternoon deliberations, the fact is, I don't think anybody wants to draw this case out longer than it has to. And I think that the sort of, deadline of a Friday afternoon, 4 p.m. cutoff, if there's anything to sort of light a fire in the jury, it's that. What are you thinking based on the questions that the jurors have asked at this point? What are you thinking about where they are?
Well, there were no questions asked this morning, but of course yesterday there was the question about could the jurors go inside the vehicle with the gun and review it that way. And I apologize for the background noise. I'm outside.
Okay.
But to that, of course, the defense argued, and rightfully so, because you can't, recreate a shooting in a non-moving vehicle when the vehicle was moving. It was late at night. You have an unloaded gun, so you're not going to get the same feel that you would if you had a loaded gun under the same conditions. But that was the big question yesterday, and the judge allowed that. So I think that's what the jury's going back and forth about right now.
Interesting. What can you tell us about sort of, you said it was, I forget the word you used, but somber in the courtroom there. Is Danny Jo around?
Danny Jo did come in. She came in around 10:30 this morning. I've been here since 9 o'clock. She's been in the courtroom ever since. At least she was up until the time everyone was told to leave. So she's there. You can just tell on everyone's faces that's involved in this case. They're tired. They're ready for this to come to a conclusion. I talked to a few people that know Tex personally, and they're all ready for this to come to an end. And I mean, it has been a very long trial, and it's been a long deliberation.
Yeah. What about Tex's demeanor? Is he around? Is he talking to people? What's he doing?
Well, Tex did come in the courtroom around 9:30 this morning. I was probably 10 feet away from Tex. He was talking to some of his friends and his assistant. He didn't appear to be worried, but, that's just speculation whether he is or not. But, they were just talking and laughing. I wasn't really paying attention to their conversation for obvious reasons. But, he did come out in the courtroom. He was out there for maybe 10 minutes talking to his friends and his assistant, and then he went back in.
Yeah. What are the defense attorneys and the prosecutors? Do we know what the sort of standard, the procedure that's going to happen when we do get a verdict? Are they kind of mulling around the courtroom there? I know in my practice as a defense attorney, you never know how long jurors are going to deliberate. And many times judges want you really close within the vicinity for if you get a juror question or if you get a verdict, you better be in that courtroom within, 10 to 15 minutes. So what are they doing?
Yeah, so that's very interesting. So Tex, the defense team, they have a room off to the right side of the courtroom, which is where they pretty much stayed all morning. The prosecution, they were actually out at the prosecution table. Clinton Rucker was there, and along with his co-counsel, they were all huddled around the table for most of the morning up until this lunch break. So, yeah, they're staying very close to the courtroom. I know I personally saw each side go to lunch. They're walking, so they're going within walking distance so they can be back to the courtroom quickly versus dealing with Atlanta traffic.
Yeah, very interesting, and it's smart. What about just, I'm always so curious the way, and I don't know specifically how this courthouse is, but is there any interaction between the jurors and, say, the defense attorneys? I mean, obviously they're not allowed to have any interaction, but, just in terms of like bathroom breaks, when are they sort of bumping into each other in the hallways of this courthouse, or the prosecutors for that matter?
Well, that's a very interesting point. What I've observed since this whole trial started, since I've been down here in the courtroom, the jurors kind of walk around freely. They go to the cafeteria here in the courthouse. There's really no guards around them, preventing them from talking to other people or running into the defense. I know earlier I was out in the hall and Tex McIver walked right past me. So it's pretty open here, which, quite frankly, I'm surprised that the jury was not sequestered in this case.
Yeah.
It's quite surprising that they get to go home every night, considering the magnitude of this case and the speculations behind this case with race and everything else. But it's quite open here in the courtroom.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you, but nobody likes a sequestered jury. I think judges go out of their way not to sequester the jury because it is such a sort of big burden, both, economic burden and really just manpower burden. It takes a lot of sort of thinking in terms of how to go about doing it. I do wonder if, the jurors have been successful in an ability to sort of shield themselves from any outside media coverage of this case. Just how big is sort of the media coverage down there? We know it's being picked up nationally, but is the courtroom full, for example, every day?
It has been in the last few days. Definitely today. I actually just walked past 3 different local outlets here in Atlanta when I went to set up for this feed here. So the media is definitely here today, especially hoping that a verdict comes in. We're going into Friday. We don't want to go into the weekend. We definitely don't want to go into Monday. But yeah, the media is here full force today.
All right, Vincent Hill, thank you so much. Always appreciate your on-the-ground analysis. So helpful to get sort of a bird's-eye view of what's happening in the Claude Tex McIver trial. I'm going to finish up some clips of the defense's opening statement now. Stay with us. We'll go right live to the courtroom as soon as we hear anything about a potential verdict.